let's get the show on the road. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Arctiq Red Hat Coffee Hours. I'm Luc Villeneuve, the president of Arctiq, a benchmark company. Arctiq is a DevOps, DevSecOps subject matter expert company. We help clients with their journey to the cloud and on-prem DevOps projects. To replay this episode, you can go at red.hat/coffee hours. There's several of these events that you can go and listen to. This one will be posted there later today. We have a 3 guest speaker today. Shlomo Bielak, CTO at Arctiq. Shlomo is on vacation with his family in Orlando, so he prepared a 10-minute video that we'll listen to, and then he's going to join us for the panel conversation at the end. We have Mike Cardy, Red Hat CTO, and he will review the Red Hat journey to the cloud. Marat, the Salakhutdinov from Red Hat practitioner, a Arctiq employee, which is going to review some example on how DevOps best practice on OpenShift and how that works for him in the environment of OpenShift. Then we're going to have Gene Kim, who will address us, and I will introduce Jim in more personal flavor in a few minutes. Now, Scott, if you want to run the first segment of our presentation today with Shlomo, go ahead.
Welcome to our Arctiq and Red Hat event featuring Gene Kim. I'm Shlomo Bielak, the CTO at Arctiq, and I'm going to be sharing with you some unique findings that we've come across as we deliver DevOps for our clients. And what we've recognized is that the global standards that we are targeting for our future state, our roadmap, our journey to the cloud needs to change. So we're hoping to share with you how you can continuously reinventing yourself using DevOps practices and culture and disprove some of the targeted SDLC truths that you're aiming for today. This comes out of our services practice, and its intent is to advance your skills based on our experience and give you some insights into successful transformations. I know a lot of people talk about transformations, but we're doing it from a mathematical point. We're doing it from an engineering effectiveness standpoint, and we're building tools as a development shop as well to help our services and our customers deliver greater experiences, greater outcomes that sometimes seem like the start of a journey, but it leads to continuous improvement, which is what everybody here who's joining here today would like to achieve. And with that, I'm going to jump into the truths. I'm going to first state that time to market and release frequency is irrelevant. They're just pressures, and a lot of organizations, this is the methodology at which they measure, are we doing well? And what's happening to that is DevOps is pursuing an outcome that's actually a pressure and not the outcome that you should be measuring. So why don't we jump into how we analyze it and try to achieve more efficient and empathetic DevOps at organizations. So the truth that I'm going to make and contradict what we just said, or contradict the market's perception, is that resilience trumps time to market every single time. And we've created our own equation. I'm not going to go too much into it, but essentially it's articulating that the pressures on the equation is time to market. And if you target time to market, you can actually make different solutions that don't actually produce better outcomes, and it ignores particular functions of that efficiency. So the burden that it has on your team or the size of your team, the innovation potential, which is a function of spare time that you want your members to have, the resilience, which is a function of the percent efficiency that you're trying to create within your software development lifecycle, and then sustainability is actually a function of idle time. How much time is our resources that we're spending on and drawing from the environment is sitting and doing nothing? The 2 most common solutions that teams are doing today to solve this time to market and release frequency is solution number 1, more people. So by adding more people, it actually, based on the math, reduces your resilience. The reason being is you have less subject matter experts. You're breaking down the need to deliver across too many people so that those people then only have siloed abilities. And this is just due to the power law distribution, where a small group that's highly efficient can deliver the whole entire needs of the application or organization. The second solution, which is less a direction, but more of an outcome, is low runtime. What we mean by that is people are skipping steps, organizations are skipping steps in the event to cut down the time it takes so that they can release more frequently, but actually lowers your resilience. The reason being is you're just cutting out steps to meet the pressures that are coming out, which are time to market. Both of these solutions actually damage the organization, but meet the business requirements. The third solution, which is where we're measuring and trying to create the direction of the market, is around efficiency, which is high resilience by orchestrating the process so that the human being, the burden that occurs, is removed, it's placed on technology, and then people have time for innovation potential and work on the sustainability of the process to remove idle time within their applications. So what did we do to fix this in the market? We created DevOps Equilibrium, and its intent is to take that equation, which seems quite complex, make it a very simple 1-hour effort for a team, create your organization, create your departments and your team on the SaaS. And what that will do is allow you to track the efficiencies and resilience of your software development. So time to market becomes irrelevant. The reason being is you can do exponential gains if you increase your orchestration to a point where the burden on the team is so little and you're running the steps that you need so that you actually have resilience. What essentially happens is business pressures and time to market is a choice. You can pick any time you want because you actually fix the problem that was needed. And I give this as an analogy. The argument here is if I need to go from point A to B, the time it takes to go from point A to B can't be shortened. It's fixed. It's what's required. The time is required. You're not trying to remove the point A to B's. You're trying to fix the delay that can occur that shouldn't be there. So to give an example, adoption of Ansible, just as Ansible, can scale much more exponentially and compound the value to many teams if it's orchestrated. So let's say you add a GitHub Actions on top of Ansible. That unleashes the ability and delivering value of Ansible to the entire organization. We consider that highly resilient, and this is what we measure across the organization in SDLC. I'm going to move to the second truth. And I'm going to say that zero trust alone is not very efficient, especially for elite DevOps. And we're going to jump into it. So we're going to go into what I mean by that. Let's say you have zero trust, which is trust nothing, least privilege, full visibility, centrally managed, but you also build out some capabilities from your SDLC. You build out full stack observability, you build out CI/CD and deployment strategies, and you build out a really good orchestration pipeline. What happens when you have resilience that's very high is that people are no longer involved. Their privilege should no longer be involved. So what we're trying to articulate is removal of privilege, which is the truth, which is absent trust. You shouldn't need trust in your environment when you're doing elite DevOps methodologies. You just need break glass in the inevitable circumstance that sometimes you might need to go into the environment. But it enhances zero trust by adding a removal layer of trust as you enhance your CI/CD capabilities. We're going to move into the final and last truth, which is observability can leave you blind. And I know it seems so ironic, but it is the circumstance within the market, which comes down to the fact that customer happiness is what we should be measuring, not the level of observability that we have. And the reason for that is every application, be it a browser-based, a mobile-based, an API-based, they have different requirements to calculate efficiency and different requirements to calculate happiness. That happiness can be an SRE, the person who handles the response and handles day 2 activities, or the customer, which is consuming the service. When we add pressures like service levels and we measure service levels, that in itself doesn't create customer happiness. You're just creating a measurement that gives you, am I meeting it or not? But are we sure that that's what the customer is looking for from a happiness perspective? So hence we created M3 SRE. Its purpose is to take that equation based on your application requirements and then measure your current state to say, do I even know if my customer's happy or not. This is just an example of one of the measurements. And then we build out those capabilities specific to your application that is the equation to create observability with customer happiness in mind, or SRE happiness in mind, if you're concerned about operational excellence and day two or response activities. I know you're going to come to, how does this all happen? How did you come up with these truths? How do you operate? How do I do it? And we came up with 3 simple principles so that every customer who wants to adopt DevOps, DevSecOps can use within their organizations as part of their mindset, or SRE mindset, or a DevOps mindset. The first one is, do not change existing services or machines. This prevents teams from allowing brittleness to persist. This prevents teams from putting their hands into systems. You're creating a CI/CD mechanism to deliver value. The second one, you have no human access to shared environments. This intent is to build up full stack observability. Why would I need to access a system, which helps us enforce our zero trust and absent trust? Why do I access the system if I have full data and full visibility into what I need outside of the environment collected in a secure manner? The most important principle which helps resilience to occur is all the value engineers create that are delivered to an organization has to have 1 degree of separation from their free time and family time. What we mean by that is, regardless of churn and turnover or people not being available or not, the value to the business still occurs, and it resides within their intellectual property, within their CI/CD practices, and applications delivering onto OpenShift happen based upon, I have a commit. Not based upon, is the SME there to handle what happens afterwards? Are they there and know what needs to be done? So I hope these truths were enlightening. I know these seem contradictory to where you're targeting, but go through them, review the content. We'll make sure it's available to you, and hopefully that helps you advance your DevOps practice at your organization. And thank you very much for joining. And hopefully the next talkers add more enlightenment to your day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Shlomo. We'll have a chance to ask questions at Shlomo during the panel review. He'll be here with us. Just to remind people, on the right side of your screen, there's a Q&A. Start to ask potentially your questions for the panels, the people as they speak, and hopefully you have time at the end to deal with some of those questions. Each speakers may have their own unique question you have for them, so please put the name of the person you're asking the question for, so when we go around the block, we'll know which person should be answering the question. So now we have Mike Cardy from Red Hat, CTO of Red Hat. Mike, we've known each other for a long time. I know you do great presentations, so show us your goods.
Okay, thank you, Luke. Let me just share the content for today. And can someone let me know if you can see it okay?
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. Yes, well, thank you so much, Luke. It's a real pleasure to be here. So welcome to Journey to the Cloud, DevOps and the Multi-Cloud. I am Michael Cardy, Chief Strategist at Red Hat, as Luke just mentioned, and I'm a DevOps enthusiast like Mr. Gene Kim. I'm excited to be reunited with my friend Gene, and as well, of course, of Luke, Shlomo, and Marat, and from our great partner, Arctiq. Always been a big supporter of our partner ecosystem. So I have an action-packed agenda today. I will speak to where we are in the journey to cloud. Where do I and where Red Hat thinks we should be going, as well as how both Red Hat Tech and the multi-cloud fit into this new global DevOps movement that's transforming how we work and relate, and ultimately impacts how we actually see ourselves in our organizations. So let's hop into it. So where are we in the story of cloud? I would say we're at the beginning stages of the early majority of Jeffrey Moore's diffusion of innovation bell curve. We have signed contracts, we got committed spends, we have some uptake of workloads. I don't think we're quite to a full scale yet. Plans who began in the cloud are obviously there, but those that have learned how to do automation also have taken a heavy impact, or really added a lot of workloads to the public cloud environment. In fact, we have an oil and gas client that moved over 2,000 plus workloads to the cloud using Ansible as a product in their migration factory. A recent survey I just saw said that 63% are using hybrid cloud today, and 54% plan to use hybrid cloud over the next couple of years. And as I said before, we're basically at the early majority stage of Moore's diffusion of technology curve. So as I was saying, if we break down the current state of application delivery, you probably have a crazy mix of applications, both new and old. Most organizations still have a lot of traditional application portfolios, maybe some enterprise service buses kicking around, and even a few of the traditional languages, like C, C++, Java. But enterprises are also building new applications nowadays, and microservices and APIs, and leveraging the DevOps framework that Gene's about to get into. And many of them are moving to trying to figure out how to integrate more intelligence and newer models into their apps using machine learning, event-driven architectures, etc. And today's development processes and methodologies are going under a massive transformation as well. And today we have the grandmaster of DevOps, Gene Kim. And how is this changing your architecture? How are new development methodologies changing your cloud strategy? Let me get into that. So if you look at organizations that are focused on a container approach to their cloud transformation, this gives you a sense from the Cloud Native Compute Foundation's map of all the technologies and capabilities you need in order to run containers in production. And looking at this map, there's a lot of capabilities, and there's a real temptation or lure to look at all these tools and build your own platform. And for those of you who have been successful, all the power to you. This is a huge accomplishment. Believe me, at Red Hat, we know it's difficult building a platform. So I applaud you. But for a lot of the market, the honeymoon is over. It's been a real challenge, and the story is not for the faint of heart. I like to call this random acts of platforms, where you're piecing together capabilities based on need. So what do I mean by no more normal honeymoon? I mean that building your own container platform, you'll have to vet and test and select individual technologies throughout the stack and keep up with each component individually through its life cycle and make sure that they all work together. And this is where you can run into a lot of friction and a lot of challenges. The Red Hat allows you to integrate those stacks together in conjunction with our other ecosystem partners, including Arctiq. We believe that the open hybrid cloud can help you do all of this. Red Hat's had this vision for over 7 years. How do you move faster with the stability and scale that you need in this crazy hybrid mix of applications, processes, and infrastructure? And how do you help your teams work together efficiently to deliver software with speed, stability, and scale, and consistently across the hybrid environment, from bare metal servers to public cloud to edge compute, or even multiple clouds? And hybrid is the reality today, so Red Hat believes that you can make it work to your advantage. With the open hybrid cloud, you can transform applications, infrastructure, processes in order to gain the speed, stability, and scale that you need in your business. So be it OpenShift or Ansible, it's all about a coherent enterprise architecture that fits together. It's integrated. It's the same experience no matter where a person in your company interacts with a tech, no matter the type of workload. Complexity, non-standardization, nuances can be abstracted away. These are the guiding principles of unifying platforms. So you need to ask yourself, how do I simplify? Well, you unify. Specialization is great, but the best platforms focus on nailing the generic use cases to enable specialization. Let me say that again. Best platforms focus on nailing the generic use case to enable specialization. So in the automotive industry, many models of cars use the same chassis, the same undercarriage that the rest of the car sits on, and allows the integration of its capabilities to form a car. In fact, there's a lot of reusable parts across even car models. So using the same underlying platform, the undercarriage, and you can bolt on reusable services, it'll be the same operational model like a car assembly line that spits out different models of cars. So I believe the successful platform makes the lowest common denominator across all delivery streams as an awesome and as solid as it can be. Teams can use generic platforms to take grant the economies of scale and solely focus on their feature differentiation amongst themselves. Now, Gene talks about Dr. Eliyahu's Goldrat's core chronic conflict between development and operations that leads to the downward spiral of brittle systems that break catastrophically. Basically, as a result of the diametrically opposed goals and incentives between teams. This slide represents a new manifestation of this opposing force, the conflict between differentiation and scale. This is a great tension. You saw what happens in the previous slide when someone doesn't see the trees for the forest. You get a suboptimal, non-standardized architecture, operating model, cost model, and you end up with a lot of technical debt, which is the bane of our experience in many ways, that we're trying to crawl out of it nowadays with our legacy systems. So from a stack perspective, we believe the answer is a unified, highly automated, and integrated platform that provides these features and, more importantly, a self-serve unified experience that abstracts out, i.e. removes, all the nuances of where applications are run. It also abstracts out the interfaces and the underlying complexity. It allows for distributed application architectures with platform features to handle the resulting complexity of such architectures. Capabilities such as service mesh and operators, API services, Kafka streams, event-driven services, and etc. Built on top are client-tailored, composable, and reusable services across the hybrid cloud. The core aspect of new application architectures that drive DevOps patterns are distributed application architectures. So by building a platform such as this, it makes it easy to do the right thing. And in many cases, our platforms are push-button in nature, meaning push-button upgrades to remove technical debt, even during production. And also, as my colleague Todd Wilson claims, the creation of a platform team that treats the platform as a product and enables the other teams in the organization to consume and build reusable components and services using an API-like culture makes it easy for people to do the right thing and build and consume services on a unified platform. So you can see there's a way to get the best of both worlds by taking a unified approach. By using such a platform, it insulates the friction between opposing goals and forces of differentiation and scale, and you can drive the outcomes that you wish. Now, most organizations focus on the application pipelines or the technology value stream from Gene's the Phoenix project. As Shlomo just mentioned, as he introduced OpenShift and Ansible, both are great unifying platforms across the multi-cloud. With Ansible really helping those of you in operations apply the DevOps movement to your lives for non-containerized workloads for both development and operation value streams in this diagram. And from the Unicorn project, Gene will probably further talk about this in the seminar, but one of the first ideal of the 5 ideals is locality and simplicity, which is basically the number of people you're going to take to lunch to do a production release, make sure everybody's on the same page. And he also talks about the second ideal of focus, flow, and joy, meaning people can have the focus in the primary role, maximizing the flow of change through this application lifecycle, and then feel the joy of putting the work into actual production and seeing it work properly. So our OpenShift container platform, in conjunction sometimes with the sometimes forgotten container, has built-in capabilities to remove a number of the people you need to take to lunch for a production release. The lonely and oft-forgotten container, with such a beautiful object of encapsulation, allows a standard artifact, a standard object, to be promoted or flow through the technology value stream or the application lifecycle, eliminating the mundane writing of config scripts, preparation of dependencies, and handoffs. And just like a standard car in a car assembly plant, this allows the effective automation, which drives significant velocities. So with OpenShift, assuming you have the proper unit testing, integration testing, pre-production testing, according to like the testing pyramid in place, the platform allows developers to actually push their code to production without involving other parties. Through lightweight Tecton pipelines, through GitOps using our Argo CD, operators for application lifecycle management, and or deployment techniques such as service mesh to do canary, AB, blue-green deployments to production. Service meshes allow developers to operations to push down complexity and inter-service communication, and security is actually handled by the platform in many cases. And in a broader cloud context, OpenShift allows you to decouple the applications from the hyperscalers and extract the nuances of the hyperscaler management. Developers and ops staff, for the most part, should know where the public cloud provider are on. It's all the same experience. And for those of you that are dabbling in GitOps, OpenShift GitOps makes it easier to manage configurations, definitions, and environments for both Kubernetes itself and the application that hosts, using Git as the source of truth. Change the code in the repo, it gets delivered to the cluster. Talk about platform as code. One of our actual pre-sales architects, while being a consultant, deployed over 120 plus OpenShift clusters on AWS Rosa, which is our managed service in conjunction with Amazon, using this approach for a major North American airline. Now that's really distributed Kubernetes at scale. And to sum up, a unified platform with reusable, composable services that abstract out complexity makes the easy thing the right thing. And as our OpenShift platform can be self-managed by yourselves, the client, or consumed from the major hyperscalers in a jointly managed fashion, Red Hat plus the hyperscaler, you can introduce SRE-based capabilities into your organization immediately by consuming our platform management services, allowing you to focus on your core business. And for clients who have multiple OpenShift clusters and other Kubernetes distributions, we offer Advanced Cluster Manager, ACM, at the top of this particular diagram, to help you set unified global policies for multi-cluster across the multi-cloud in a declarative fashion. This allows you to take control of the armada of your Kubernetes deployments in one place and abstract out the nuances of the public cloud provider's management stack. So one way to simplify your life, possibly take back your life, and create a unified, coherent architecture and operating model for container-based workloads. We also provide Red Hat Advanced Cluster Security for Kubernetes, which is in the top middle of this diagram, and it can help you innovate with confidence by allowing you to shift security left and to automate DevSecOps, kind of the new dream that we're looking at achieving, so that your developers can mitigate security issues such as image vulnerabilities early in the container lifecycle, identify workload misconfigurations like excessive permissions, and this basically reduces your attack surface and risk profile and helps your security teams operationalize your runtime security controls and detect and respond to runtime threats. So going up above the platform, Red Hat's application platform offers a consistent experience with many common technologies across various footprints that comprise your IT landscape, from your data centers to the cloud. So the whole point of our open hybrid cloud and the services and products we deliver, as well as our partners, are meant to meet you where you are at any given time, whether you're operating our software yourselves or letting our SRE team do it for you. We have many application and data services that you see on the right-hand side of the slide for API management, Fuse for integration tasks, Kafka, our application streams product, OpenShift Data Science for machine learning, as well as runtimes and data foundations that can be stitched together in a modern enterprise architecture to span the multi-cloud. So in enterprise automation, putting the dev in DevOps for ops, this is an integrated and unified platform of automation across the hybrid multi-cloud. Anybody can automate, but an enterprise needs to coordinate and scale and automate at scale. So a lot of executives come to me asking, I run a bunch of COTS-based apps. I'm not a big application development house. I have a lot of legacy operations. How can I realize the benefits of DevOps? Automation is one way to bring teams together and to work in a coherent DevOps fashion and fully automate the enterprise. Basically, everything is code, creating an agile, flexible, resilient, and secure business. Think about what your teams are doing today, and are you able to efficiently achieve these things? And IT automation can deliver a lot of collaboration and bring the necessary change to tackle these challenges by integrating different tools across silos, streamlining processes across these tools, breaking down the silos between teams, establishing consistent governance, offering clear interfaces, and a clear means to implement new processes and new content to extend the automation itself. Ansible Automation Platform is a distributed modular solution that independently scales execution capacity to meet the business demands with minimal or no downtime. And this platform supports installation of physical, virtual, cloud, and containerized environments, giving you flexibility with design options that deliver automation across the data centers in the hybrid cloud. If we look closer at the Ansible content creation lifecycle, which mirrors in some ways the development lifecycle of an application, content creation includes developing, testing, and maintaining and publishing automation content for the organization, like the reusable composite services that I already mentioned in the previous slide. So you can develop once, run anywhere. You want to focus on developing consistent code without constraints and operational overhead. This platform offers certified content and tools and features to help you through the creation lifecycle. You absolutely want to remove GUI-based management, as anything asset that's configured through a GUI and not through code instantly becomes a form of technical debt, something that we're trying to get rid of within our modern operations. And we also offer Red Hat Ansible Automation Platform as a managed service or a self-managed service on the public cloud providers. And in particular, on Azure, we will manage the platform with Microsoft on your behalf. So bringing it all together, a unified platform drives toward the realization of the 5 ideals of DevOps that Gene's about to go through in detail. By leveraging the highly automated capabilities of the platforms, teams can focus delivering differentiation for the business while enjoying the economies of scale across the hybrid multi-cloud. Said another way, a unified platform approach allows the multi-cloud to drive the practical realization of DevOps ideals and principles. A platform approach is best because the platforms can actually influence, change, encourage, and drive the transformation of team interactions toward DevOps practices. Can also push the consequential DevOps complexity down into the platform, away from the day-to-day work of teams. And platforms allow teams to focus on people and the practice transformation. I would say are the hardest parts of digital transformation versus focusing your efforts on building particular platforms. So with that, thank you very much for your time and attention today. I look forward to your questions during the roundtable. And I believe I'm going to pass it over to Marat to give us a live demonstration of some of the technology I just went through.
Thanks, Mike. Yes, Marat will go through an example, some best practice around OpenShift. And Marat has hundreds of different client experience and implementation. And he's going to give us one example of what best practice look like. And Marat, take it over.
Thank you very much, Luke and Michael. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so my name is Marat, and I'm a delivery consultant at Arctiq. And basically today I wanted to just go through one of technical example of all these nice features that we talked about previously, and Michael mentioned previously. So before going there, I wanted to just stop by on some definitions, right? I just put some of them about automation and DevOps. So, and first one is automation. Automation is the foundation of DevOps approach, I would say. Adoption of automation help businesses to deliver value with reduced human assistance, scale business easier, and reduce human mistake in delivery of the services and solutions. And DevOps is the approach to combine IT operations and development to reduce solution delivery life cycles. I think everyone is most of us aware of all these definitions. Then later on, we were introduced to DevSecOps term, and it is actually where security is integrated to the solution in the same automated fashion and is the part of the whole solution from the very beginning. Basically, we try to integrate all the security aspects from the very beginning. Previously, it was separate teams and separate organizations, departments within organizations. So, and currently, we try to basically integrate all the processes together with DevOps practices. So, what actually Red Hat provide us, what kind of tooling Red Hat provides us to achieve all these nice automation and DevSecOps approaches, right? So I want to just mention a couple of the tools that I would be actually showcasing today. So first one is Red Hat Ansible Automation. That one is basically the key platform for doing automation within the Red Hat ecosystem. It has integration with all so many different tools, and really a lot of organizations are adopting this tool and like it very much. Second one was OpenShift and OpenShift Plus platform. So when I talk about OpenShift, I call it Kubernetes platform on steroids, where most of the users needs are available out of the box, and with the new OpenShift Plus offering, actually it's even more attractive as it includes some more nice features like Advanced Cluster Manager. It's a long-awaited tool for managing fleet of the OpenShift cluster. So basically, you can deploy different OpenShift clusters on different platforms and actually even import some different flavors of Kubernetes into the same systems. Then we have Advanced Cluster Security, the former StackRox product, and now it's like part of Red Hat ecosystem. And this one is really a very useful tool when you talk about security, securing of your OpenShift platform. Then we have OpenShift Data Foundation. It's a former OpenShift container storage that combines well-known Rook, Ceph, and Nuba to provide a great block, file, and object storage to fulfill all your storage needs on OpenShift. Then we have Quay Image Registry. It's a distributed and highly available container image registry with integrated security scan. So all these products are part of OpenShift Plus. Now, to do CI/CD on OpenShift, we have some more additional tools. So one of these is OpenShift Pipelines, the tool based on Tekton. And it is Kubernetes native pipelines, easy to adopt and fit perfectly to OpenShift ecosystem because all the pipelines defined with YAML manifests and really easy to adopt to any Kubernetes OpenShift solution. Then we have OpenShift GitOps, which is based on Argo CD, great Kubernetes native continuous deployment tool that can be used for deployment of your application as well as for configuration of your clusters and basically the whole OpenShift ecosystem. And finally, we have two more tools here. One is Red Hat Insights. So it's a managed service to collect information about all your systems and have it in one place. And basically, you can deploy different agents on the Linux system as OpenShift system comes with it by default, and all the information collected into one place, and you can see all the advisories that it provides to solve your problems and detect and solve your problems with. And finally, we have Red Hat Smart Management. It's evolution of Satellite, I would say, which now is provided as an add-on to different products. And basically, what I liked of recent updates from it, in Satellite, many of you would know that you need to click through a lot of GUI parts and do everything manually. And a newer version, now you have templating and tight integration with Ansible automation platform. And that helps a lot to automate your day-to-day tasks. So yeah, now you probably think, is he trying to sell something here? Well, yes and no. Basically, what I am trying to do, as I'm from delivery team, I wanted to just showcase a bit one of the deployment approach of OpenShift ecosystem, by using all these tools that I mentioned. So basically, let's. I will not run the whole deployment now because it will take really a long time to run through it because deployment itself with all the applications enablement takes about 1 hour. So I prepared everything beforehand, and basically I just will walk through all the results which I got. So on the next slide, on this slide, you basically can see the whole workflow of deployment of the OpenShift. So what I'm doing here, I'm using Ansible for deployment of Red Hat OpenShift cluster as a hub cluster of Advanced Cluster Management hub cluster. Then what I'm doing, I'm deploying on top of it OpenShift GitOps. So with OpenShift GitOps, I deploy app of apps. Basically, it is application of OpenShift GitOps that deploys all our dependent applications. So you can see all these steps on the very left side. Then when you switch to the first Red Hat Advanced Cluster Management Hub cluster, you can see that after deployment of OpenShift GitOps, we have this app of apps, basically. Then we have second cluster application. This application actually is deploying manifests that are used by Red Hat Advanced Cluster Manager to deploy additional managed cluster on the GCP. So then we have Red Hat Advanced Cluster Manager application, which has all the manifests to deploy advanced cluster manager operator, all the different policies for placement of different applications in different clusters. Then we have this small cluster config application that actually does configuration of the our Red Hat ACM hub cluster. So basically our main OpenShift cluster. And what I'm doing there, basically I'm adding infra and storage nodes so that I can move some of the workloads to infra nodes and deploy ODF on storage nodes. So after that, you could see like this second cluster is deploying this managed cluster, and Red Hat Advanced Cluster Manager with policies deploying all the depending applications on that managed cluster. So basically, that's it. And if we go to the next slide, I have all these references to all the different products which I talked about, and link to my source code. And I just wanted to showcase the whole setup for you. Just give me a moment. I will reshare my screen. You should see my screen now, right? So yeah, basically, if anyone interested in the technical aspect of all this demo, you can reach out to this repository in our corporate repository and check through all the code. So it's really straightforward. We have all the instructions here. You just need to populate certain variables in the var file, and then you will be able to deploy a whole infrastructure basically in about 1 hour. So after that, I was mentioning that we have that Ansible part. After we run Ansible, here, for example, we run Ansible playbook and do the deployment. And when it's finished, we can see that all the deployment is done, and we can see all the passwords here thrown of the hub clusters, so we can connect and see what's going on there. So if we switch to now to OpenShift GitOps console, I was mentioning that we have this root application that is app of apps, basically this key application that deploys the rest of the application. So if we go in there, you can see this application has Advanced Cluster Manager application, Cluster Config application, OpenShift Data Foundation, that's storage, right? And then second cluster application. So everything is set up for automatically automatic sync, and basically after syncing up, you can go in here and see all the applications deployment. So for Advanced Cluster Manager, we have all these different operator manifests and additional policies, and everything is getting deployed on different on the hub cluster, and basically then later on those policies would be applied to the managed cluster as well. So if you go back and check this cluster config manifest, so what it does basically, it pulls some interesting code from the like some information from the cluster with custom plugins, Argo CD custom plugins, and generates infrastructure nodes here. It generates infra node and storage nodes, and then another one, this second cluster manifest. So these manifests are needed for deploying of second manifest on the same GCP. So this is all the applications, and after everything is run, you can run some generate URLs script here and get all the URLs of your clusters and basically of your tools. So here is the main console of the main hub cluster. You can see it after installing Advanced Cluster Manager. It adds up some additional menu options here, so you can get to the multi-cloud console right away from here, as you can see. And you could see there on the local cluster, you could see that operators, installed operators, all the operators that we have installed by using that Advanced Cluster Manager policies and GitOps operator manifest, application manifest. So then we have second cluster URL, right? Console, everything is good here. Then we have multi-cloud console. If you prefer to work with it separately here, all the different options. You can see the clusters here. You can see the applications. You can see the policies that applied. Some of them are having violations, I need to just double check what's happening there. So basically, this helps us to monitor and deploy all our OpenShift clusters fleet, and basically monitor all the problems here, and use this console as a single pane of glass to see all the your deployments and applications. Then what we have Red Hat Advanced Cluster Security. So again, this was deployed with Red Hat Advanced Cluster Manager policies, and basically we can see all the security problems on our cluster. So we have 81 high problems, and each of them are commented and explained, like what can we do and what we need to do to fix those problems. This is basically very useful. And then finally, we have Red Hat Insights here. So we can just go ahead and check the clusters and see the recommendations here. The same we would see in our main consoles also. If we go to the home page, you would see the same insights recommendations in here as well. So it's really useful. And if you have some fleet of other Red Hat tools, you can see them as well in this nice UI. Very useful integration, and having everything in one place is really nice to have. So let me stop sharing this, and I will finish my presentation. So, and the most interesting part, I showcased all these different tools and different options to deploy our clusters, and to automate post-install configuration, and to make sure that we have certain policies applied, and we have compliance operator deployed. So if you like all of the any of this content, and if you like some of the products we listed here, and if you think that we can help you with solving of your business problems, we basically can help you here. We have some funds available, and if anyone interested in the products I have mentioned, and you need help with configuring of your stuff, let us know, and we will be able to analyze your current situation and provide some ideas and help. So if you want to reach us out, you can always just follow this link and send us a message. Also, I believe Scott will be sending out some closing questionnaire after this meeting, so you can ask your questions over there as well. That's pretty much it. Thank you very much for your time. I hope everyone enjoyed my little presentation. Thanks.
Thanks, Marat. I really enjoyed the passion and the love of the technology. So thanks for the time you spend on prepping for this presentation. Very much appreciated. So the moment that you guys have been all waiting for, Gene is here. Gene is in the house. Gene, you and I think this is our 5th time collaborating on a presentation. 4th time was face-to-face in Toronto when I was at Red Hat. And it's been the first one that we're doing in digital view. So certainly, I'd like to also welcome 2 organizations that have registered for you in a very large amount of people. CRA in Ottawa, a federal government entity that have a fair amount of people that have registered to see you, and Suncor from Calgary. I know you've talked to them last year, so they're coming back to follow you and to hear what you have to say. Well, Gene has been studying high-performance technology since 1999. He was founder and CTO of Tripwire for 13 years, enterprise security software company. Gene book sold over 1 million copies. I was surprised when I read that a few days ago. 1 million copies. Some of you heard the book Unicorn Projects, the Phoenix Projects, the DevOps Handbook, the Accelerate award-winner book as of late. So congratulations, Gene. Over a lifetime, selling 1 million book is, and I'm sure more to come. So I'd like to remind you that there's a chat box in the bottom. Please, if you have questions, as Gene present his few slides, or if you have any questions, I'll pick up some of the question there for asking Gene, as well. I have a few questions for you when you're done your little intro, Gene. So welcome to Canada again.
Very good. Thank you, Luke, and thank you, Shlomo, Mike, and Marat. I so much enjoyed the presentations, and in the next 25 minutes, I want to motivate why so many of the concepts that have been brought up earlier in the session are so important, and motivate why. To set some context, as Luke mentioned, I've been studying high-performing technology organizations since 1999, and that was a journey that started back when I was the technical founder and CTO of a company called Tripwire in the information security and compliance space. And so we want to understand, how did these amazing organizations simultaneously have the best project due date performance in development, they had the best operational reliability and stability in ops, as well as the best posture of security and compliance. We want to understand how did those amazing organizations make their good to great transformation so that we could understand how other organizations could replicate those amazing outcomes. And so, as you can imagine, in a 23-year journey, there were many surprises, but by far, the biggest surprise was how it took me into the middle of the DevOps movement, which I think is so urgent and important. I think the last time that we've seen any industry being disrupted to the extent that all our industries are being disrupted today was likely manufacturing in the 1980s, when it was upended with Toyota and the lean manufacturing movement. I think that's exactly what DevOps is. Take those same lean principles, apply them to the technology value stream that we work in every day, and you end up with these emergent patterns that allow organizations to do tens, hundreds, or even hundreds of thousands of deployments a day, while preserving world-class reliability, security, and stability. So what I'll do is I'm going to try to share my screen. Luke, Mike, if you can confirm that that actually works. Share window. PowerPoint slide deck. I'm hoping you can see my screen. If you can give me an audible.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, good. Thank you. Enter notes. Good. Okay. Thank you. So here's the definition of DevOps that we put into the DevOps handbook. We said it is specifically the architectural practices, technical practices, and cultural norms that enable us to increase our ability to deliver applications and services quickly and safely. So those are exactly the conditions we need to rapidly innovate and experiment, as well as delivering value in the fastest possible way to our customers. And so we do this in a way that doesn't sacrifice security, reliability, or stability. And so why do we care about that? It is so that we can win in the marketplace. And for those in the Canadian government, it is not so much about winning in the marketplace, but to best serve the most important societal needs of citizens. So I love that definition because it doesn't actually say what DevOps is, but it doesn't describe what the outcomes that we aspire to are. And as much as I love that definition, I love this definition even more. It comes from my friend John Smart, who led the ways of working at Barclays, a bank founded in the year 1635, which actually predates the invention of paper cash. And his definition is simply this: it is better value, sooner, safer, and happier. And so I love this definition because, one, it's shorter than the definition I gave you, but just as accurate. And two, it's so difficult to object to. Even your biggest DevOps skeptic would not claim that they want less value later with more danger and more misery. So I think it just does a wonderful job and really articulating what we're trying to do when we say that we want to do things in a more DevOps-y-like way. So the Phoenix project came out in 2013, and I think there are still problems that remain, and maybe the most important of them are this ambiguity or understanding in terms of what is required to truly unleash developer productivity. And let's give it a name. It's really about architecture. And we heard so many hints of what that was from Mike. There's often very strong opposition to support these newer ways of working, and ambiguity in terms of what behaviors we need to support this type of transformation. And so these are the topics I want to explore further and in the Unicorn project. And so I'll describe these 5 concepts I think are important to get from here to there. I'll describe what ideal looks like, what not ideal looks like, and how we can get from one to the other. But before I do that, I just want to substantiate this claim that DevOps is important because it creates and enables business value. And so this is, of course, based on the state of DevOps research that I got to work on with Dr. Nicole Forsgren and Jez Humble from 2013 to 2019. It was a cross-population study, which is the same instrument that the medical community used to establish the link between smoking and early morbidity and mortality. And so across 36,000 respondents, we were able to see what does high performance look like and what are the behaviors that enable high performance. So what we found 6 years in a row is that high performance exists and they massively outperform their non-high performing peers, as measured by deployment frequency, as measured by they're doing multiple deployments per day, 2 orders of magnitude more frequently than their peers. But more importantly, they can do deployments faster. How quickly can they go from code committed into version control, through integration, through testing, through deployments where customers are saying thank you because running successfully in production. They can do it in 1 hour or less, whereas lower performers, will take, again, 2 orders of magnitude longer. But it's not just about being faster production. It's about getting better outcomes, as was stressed by Shlomo. When high performers do a deployment, they are 7 times more likely to succeed without causing a step 1 outage, a service impairment, a security breach, or a compliance failure. And when bad things happen, because Murphy's Law does exist, they can fix it in 1 hour or less, as measured by the mean time to restore service. That is 3 orders of magnitude faster than the peers. And so we saw this 6 years in a row. In fact, with the continuation of the research, every year is that the only way that you can get these deployment reliability profiles is do smaller deployments more frequently. So over the years, we looked at other dimensions of quality. We found that because high performers are integrating information security objectives into everyone's daily work, they're only spending 1/2 the amount of time remediating security issues. We looked at organizational performance. In addition to all these marvelous technical measures, high performers are also twice as likely to exceed profitability, market share, and productivity goals. And for not-for-profits, for those in the Canadian civilian government agencies and military and not-for-profits, same multiple of performance. They're twice as likely to achieve organizational and mission goals, regardless of how they defined it, whether it was customer satisfaction, quantity, or quality. So what this means to me is that, if mission achievement requires work that we do in the technology value stream, DevOps helps with the achievement of those missions. Another marker of organizational performance. Employees in these high performers are twice as likely to recommend their organizations as a great place to work to their colleagues and friends. And so in the age of the great resignation or great reshuffle, right, retention, recruiting, this is more important than ever. And so beyond the numbers, it really starts to suggest, what's the point of all of this? It is, to what extent can we safely, quickly, reliably, securely achieve all the goals, dreams, and aspirations of the businesses we serve? Or when it comes to government agencies, the organizations that we serve. So what I'm going to do next in the 18 minutes is share with you the 5 ideals. And the first of those is locality and simplicity. Mike alluded to this in his presentation. So in the Phoenix Project, if there were one measure that book was about, it was the bus factor, as measured by how many people need to be hit by a bus or win the lottery and leave before the project, service, or even entire organization is in grave jeopardy. And in the Phoenix Project, the bus factor was 1. If Brent got hit by a bus or won the lottery and left, and then suddenly no outage could be fixed, no deployment could be completed, in fact, no piece of complex work could be done because all of the critical knowledge was in Brent's head. And so we don't want a small bus factor of 1. We want it to be much larger. We don't want to be reliant on an individual. We want to be reliant on a team, or better yet, a team of teams. And so in the Unicorn Project, the corresponding metric is the lunch factor. To get something important done, how many people do we need to take out to lunch? Is it the Amazon ideal of the 2-pizza team, where every team, no larger than can be fed by 2 pizzas, they can independently develop, test, and deploy value to customers and have them say thank you? Right? That's great, because now we have a nice low lunch factor. Or if we have a large complex deployment, then we might have to feed hundreds of people for multiple days. And so that's, again, not great. We have too high of a lunch factor, and it says that the coordination cost is way too high. If we're a development group and we have to implement a feature and we have 43 different dependencies, now we have to take 43 different people out to lunch and explain what we're trying to do, why it's important, and most importantly, what we need from them. And if any one of the 43 people say no, then suddenly we can't get done what needs to get done, again, because of too high lunch factor. And so one of the biggest surprises and aha moments for me in the state of DevOps research is the importance of this. And it's about architecture. So here was one of the top predictors of performance. To what degree can teams make large-scale changes to their parts of the system without permission from anyone else outside of that team? To what extent can teams work on their work without a lot of fine-grained communication and coordination with people outside of their team? To what extent can they release and deploy their service on demand, independent of services that they depend upon? And I love this next one. To what extent can they do their own testing on demand without the use of an integrated test environment, which no one cleans up? They're never ready. You can never get one. And it essentially couples us to the entire enterprise. And so if all those things are true, then we should be able to do deployments during normal business hours with negligible downtime. So what this shows is that it is architecture that impacts the daily work of developers more than anything else. And so we saw all these wonderful ways that Kubernetes and containers can hide complexity from developers so that we can implement what we need to by looking at one file, one module, make the needed change, and be done. Right? Not ideal is that to make our needed changes, we have to touch all the files, all the modules, all the containers, because the surface area of that functionality is smeared across that entire domain, again, driving up the lunch factor. It's not just about implementation, it's about testing too. In the ideal, we should be able to independently implement our component and test it, isolated from every other component. And so that's the notion of composition that Mike mentioned. Not ideal is that for us to get any assurance that our changes will work as designed in production, we have to test it in the presence of every other component. Again, drawing us to those scarce integrated test environments, again, coupling us to everybody else in the enterprise. Ideal is that not only can every team deliver value to customers because they have the expertise and capability, they also have the authority to do what customer wants. Not ideal is that in order to do what the customer wants, we have to escalate everything up to, over to, and down to just to get two engineers to talk with each other. So visually depicted, it looks like this, right? And sometimes for highly coupled environments, you have to go up 8 and then down 8. Again, just so two engineers can work together to do what the customer wants. So the first ideal is locality and simplicity. The second ideal is about focus, flow, and joy. In other words, what are the outcomes of this? And so much of this was informed by me learning a functional programming language called Clojure that either runs on the JVM or gets transpiled into JavaScript. And this reintroduced the joy of coding back into my life. It was one of the most difficult things I've ever learned professionally back in 2016, but it was one of the most rewarding. And it really taught me that development is so fun, and you can build so much with so little these days because of all of the miracles that modern technology affords. And there are many things to learn out of functional programming, but the famous French philosopher Claude Lévi-Strauss would say of certain tools, is it a good tool to think with? And there are so many things that come from functional programming that give us amazing tools to think with. So these are concepts that came from programming languages like immutability, composability, but they are such good tools to think with that they show up in infrastructure and operations as well. And so if you look at Docker, that is fundamentally all about immutability, which is why if you want to make a persistent change, you find that you can't, right? You have to make an entirely new container. The value is that it makes the world so much easier to reason about if you can't make changes in production, right? You have to go back from the beginning and make a new container from scratch. Kubernetes and OpenShift take that same concept and apply it not to the component level, but to the entire system. Mike mentioned Apache Kafka, right? When things like event streams, Kafka, someone's thinking about an immutable data model where we're not allowed to change the past. And again, how much easier is it to reason about systems when you're not allowed to change the past? Which is why version control is so important, right? Which is why we get yelled at if we rewrite the commit history because we're rewriting the past. So the ideal is that we're using these better tools to think with, and we're solving, and our best time and energy is spent solving the business problem, and we're having fun. Not ideal is that all your time is spent solving problems that you don't even want to solve, like writing YAML files, which I am surprisingly ignorant of. Well, I actually saw a correctly formatted Kubernetes deployment file, and I was actually a little shocked just because my mental model of what YAML is actually quite different than what it is in reality. You're spending time trying to figure out how to escape spaces inside of file names, inside of makefiles, you're writing bash scripts. And so I'll tell you the biggest surprise after learning Clojure in 2016 is that there's all these things I used to enjoy doing 10 or 20 years ago that I now detest. And it's basically, I detest doing anything outside of my application. I hate connecting anything to anything else because it always takes me a week. I hate updating dependencies because everything breaks. I hate authentication and authorization, bash, YAML patching. I hate trying to figure out how to make my Kubernetes deployment files work. And I can't figure out why my cloud costs are so high. And I don't mean to diminish the importance of any of these things, especially those that are security related, because arguably those are as important as the feature I'm trying to build, but I just don't enjoy doing them anymore. And so what I hope everyone appreciated is that so many of those things we can now get through the platforms that we use in our daily work. So whether it's environment, deployment, feature flagging, environment creation, security experience, or all these things, right? We don't have to open up a ticket. We don't have to pester someone for weeks, right? Instead, we get them on demand. This is what Marat was showing us, right? We can get them immediately. We can get them with immediacy and fast feedback, which allows developers to have focus and flow in their work and even enables joy. So flow has a lot of connotations in the lean community, but there's a a definition I love even more, and that comes from Dr. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. He's a cognitive psychologist. He gave this amazing TED Talk called Flow, The Secret to Happiness, his book called Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience. And he describes flow as a feeling we have when we are immersed in doing work that challenges us, that rewards us, and we lose track of time or maybe even sense of self, right? So that's a transcendental experience we have when we are just doing the work that we love. And you can't be in the state of flow where we are orders of magnitude more productive than when we're not if you are opening up tickets and having to pester people all the time. And so I just want to briefly mention this metric before we leave this section because it looks so tactical, and yet I believe it is the most strategic measure of any technology organization. And that is to what is our lead time for changes? And as measured by how quickly can we go from code committed and version control through integration, through testing, through deployment, so that customers are actually saying thank you. And so that might beg the question, why do we start the lead time clock there? Why don't we start it earlier when an idea is first conceived at the point of ideation or when a feature goes into development? And the reason is because the point at which changes are put into version control divide up two very different parts of the value stream. Everything to the left is design and development, highly experimental. It doesn't take minutes or hours, might take weeks, months, or quarters. And that's just the nature of design and development work. But everything to the right of code committed is product build, test, and deploy. And there we want the exact opposite characteristics. We need it to happen quickly, ideally entirely automated. We want it to happen not only quickly, but but happening all the time upon every code commit. So code development lead time simultaneously predicts the effectiveness of product delivery, but it also predicts how good are we at giving developers fast feedback on their work. If I'm a developer and I make a mistake and I check into version control, do I find out 9 months later during integration testing? Or do I find it out immediately when automated testing kicks in so I can fix a mistake within minutes as opposed to 9 months later when the link between cause and effect has basically vanished? That's about learning from mistakes, about learning from customers. When we have to experiment, we need to do it quickly, right? If you can only do one experiment per year, you can't win. Scott Cook described the value of this rampant innovation culture in the TurboTax property over 15 years ago. He said we did 165 experiments during the peak 3 months of our tax filing season here in the United States. Why would these maniacs do that when most organizations like retailers are so afraid of the holiday outage that they have a change freeze from October 1 to January 30th? Why? Because they were able to increase the conversion rate of their customer acquisition funnel by 50%, right? And so had you waited till after the tax filing season is over, prospects and customers go left to the competition, never again to return. So maybe the best time to do experiments is during peak seasons. So first ideal is locality and simplicity. Second ideal is focus, flow, and joy. And the third ideal is about improvement of daily work. And so really this is about a choice. So not ideal is twaddy. In other words, the way we've always done it, which is maybe the mentality of some. But in our community, we would say ideal sounds more like MTBTT, which is make tomorrow better than today. So this is Google SRE principle number 2. And so essentially in our this domain, it's because greatness is a decision and it's not free. And it really comes to how do we treat technical debt? And so let me tell you a story of like where technical debt comes from using only up and down arrows. And so imagine a time when you had to get to market quickly. Sometimes the quest would be first to market and get all the rewards that gives you. Or sometimes it's because you would just be really happy to be last to market because we're not even in the game yet. And so under those conditions, it is all about features. We'll do whatever it takes. We'll cut corners, build up some debt, knowing that we'll drive down quality and even result in some defects that customers will see. So that's all in the quest to get to market quickly. But the story does not end there because over time what you find is that feature rate goes down and the number of defects, the amount of time that we spend working on customer-facing defects go up, even crossing over 100%. And so these are exactly the conditions where defects dominate daily work. Site reliability tanks, we go slower and slower, customers leave, engineers leave, because everything that was once easy is now flipping impossible. So my friend John Cutler tweeted this at me. He said, yes, exactly. In 2015, a certain reference feature would take 15 to 30 days. 3 years later, same class of feature, now takes 10 times longer. So if you felt this, you're not crazy. This is because of technical debt, and make no mistake, this kills companies. So one of the most amazing books I've read is called Transforming Nokia by Risto Salasma. He was the founder of F-Secure. He joined the board in 2008 thinking that this was going to be the height of his career. And this unflinching look at his own performance as he was trying to battle a very domineering board chairman. My favorite part of the book, when he describes in 2010 how it felt when he was told by the VP of strategy at Nokia that the build times for the Symbian OS operating system took 48 hours. He said it felt like being hit in the head with a sledgehammer because he knew that if it took any engineer 2 days to learn whether their change worked or would have to be redone, then all their hopes, dreams, and aspirations that were residing on Symbian OS was an illusion, which is one of the reasons why they went to Windows Mobile, which did not treat them so well either, but that was actually a far better bet than staying on Symbian OS. So what you should know is that every tech giant faced a decision, but ended up making different decisions that led to a different outcome. Whether it's eBay, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Twitter, LinkedIn, Etsy, they all face this problem, but they did something different. So my favorite example is the Microsoft security stand-down of 2002. Some of you may remember that this was the summer of worms, where basically every major Microsoft product was being mown down because of security vulnerabilities. The result of this was, as is Code Red, SQL Slammer, Nimda. So what did they do about it? They had a feature freeze across every Microsoft product line. Windows, SQL Server, Exchange, Office. And Bill Gates put out a memo internally and published it externally saying, explaining why. My favorite line is, if a developer ever has to choose between working on a feature or fixing a security issue, fix the security issue because the survival of the company depends upon it. And so the decision that every one of these tech giants made was, we stop working on features so we can focus on paying down technical debt, invest in quality, drive down the number of defects so that maybe not to zero, but something we can sustain over time. And by reinvesting in architecture, we can increase our feature velocity by orders of magnitude. And this is indeed how every one of the tech giants survived and are winning in the marketplace. And so this doesn't come from just CEOs or organizations, and make no mistake, these were all CEO-driven initiatives. That also comes from product owners. So this is Marty Kagan, who wrote the amazing book, Inspired, How to Create Products That Customers Love. And his advice to generations of product owners is take 20% off the table. They're not there for you to spend. It is there for engineers to use however they see fit to fix problematic areas of code, to re-architect, to automate, so that we don't get into a situation where he found himself in the 2000s when he was VP of product management at eBay and he didn't ship a feature for 2 years. Why? Because they're drowning in technical debt and just trying to keep the site up. So only way to avoid that fate is to pay technical debt down as you go. So the famous Canadian Jean-Michel Lemieux, former VP of Engineering at Atlassian, former CTO of Shopify, when asked, how do you allocate your R&D cycles? He said 50% of cycles on platforms, 40% on features, 10% on experiments. And the sad thing is that most organizations, it's the opposite. They spend 80% of the time on features and jam everything else in that 20%. Can't get from there here to there using that. So the fourth ideal is psychological safety. And our favorite model of this is the Westrom organizational typology model. He studied patient safety in healthcare, aviation safety in the airline industry, and he found that in the worst performers, we hide information. Messengers of bad news are shot. We discourage bridging between teams, we cover up failures, and new ideas are crushed, right? In the highest performing organizations, we found the exact opposite characteristics. We seek information. We train messengers to tell bad news. We share responsibilities, and we encourage bridging between teams because we know that InfoSec is not just InfoSec's job, just like availability and uptime isn't just Ops' job. It is everybody's job. And when failures happen, it causes a genuine sense of inquiry, and new ideas are welcomed. And so this is not just in the tech giants, this is across large, complex organizations as well, which has been my area of passion since 2014. So I've been running this conference called the DevOps Enterprise Summit, a conference for technology leaders to share experience reports. And I'm so proud that we have nearly 1,000 leaders, just correct that slide, across almost every industry vertical, sharing how they're competing and winning in the marketplace by using the same practices created in the tech giants. And I'll share with you some of my favorite presentations. One of them came from the Canadian government, Dennis Skinner, and Mark Bouillard, who described the amazing work being done in the Canadian government to help advance societal goals, everything from the COVID response to opening up the borders, and so much more. Great presentation, by the way, and I'll send the link after this presentation. So I will leave you with one last ideal, which is customer focus. And this comes from spending a day with the CEO of CompuWare, the famously resurgent mainframe vendor. And the first thing on the agenda was a data center tour. And I was thinking, what could I possibly learn by seeing someone's data center and halon extinguishers, which I've seen plenty of in my career. But what I saw blew my mind, because here's what we saw. We saw 25,000 square feet of empty data center space. You will see on the floor these green outlines, like in a murder scene on a TV show, where the server racks used to be. You'll see in the middle of the green outlines these tombstones that describe what business process and what application used to run there, and how much money do they save by either getting rid of it or moving it to a SaaS vendor. So you'll see things like on-prem email, EMEA financials, and so forth. You see the sign saying over 15 tons of obsolete equipment removed and recycled, sent to a better place. And so why is this important? It's because, in my mind, it's one of the best examples of core versus context. So Dr. Geoffrey Moore defines core as the core competencies of the organization that create lasting, durable business advantage that our customers are willing to pay us money for. And context is everything else. So context is often mission critical, like payroll, the famous Phoenix project in Canada, right? We have obligations that we need to fulfill, but customers are not willing to pay us more money just because we have world-class payroll services. So that picture represented $8 million of context that customers did not care about, to core, R&D, that customers absolutely care about. And the danger here is that context can starve core. And so here's such an example of $8 million being taken from context, put into core. So not ideal is that functional silo managers prioritize silo goals over the most important business goals, whereas ideal is that functional silo managers and anybody can look at the work they're doing at any given moment and ask, is this creating lasting, durable business advantage that our customers care about and are willing to pay us money for? And if it's not, we should be able to unflinchingly ask, should we be doing this at all, right? Should we move to a vendor where it's their core competency and we are happy to pay money to get access to it? So why do I think this is important? The world is changing very fast, and big no longer beats small. Instead, it is fast being the slow. And the 5 ideals are really just concepts I think help us get from here to there. So if you're interested in these slides, they will be made available to you. If you're interested in excerpts, they're in my books. If you want links to all of the DevOps Enterprise presentations, just send an email to realgenekim@sendyourslides.com, subject line DevOps, and you'll get an automated response in a couple of minutes. And I hope to see you all at DevOps Enterprise, where we'll learn more about how large, complex organizations are transforming. With that, I'd like to turn it back over to Luke. Thank you.
Hey, Gene, it take a few seconds before the microphone turns back on after you shut down your presentation. So here I am. You hear me, right?
Yes, I can indeed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, I can see where some of the projects and some of the environment I work with would take a lot more than 2 pizzas, feed the people, and more than 1 time. So that was a great analogy. I haven't heard you saying that before. Thanks for that. Great presentation as usual. I think we've seen you present many times, and I like the new material that you brought into to our audience. Let me ask you a question, Gene, about the cloud. I mean, 20 years ago when you wrote your first book, the cloud was not even a consideration for anyone on this call. Now, do you think the cloud journey, the DevOps practice is easier to deal with, or indifferent, or the same? What is your experience in with moving to the cloud these days?
Yeah, I think what is so my biggest aha moment and learning in the last couple of years is understanding why cloud and platforms are so important. And if you can forgive just this little analogy, I mean, I think it all has to do with coordination cost. In other words, whenever we have to do work that depends on other people, we take this huge cost. And so what's also happening is that as we increase the number of functional specialties, again, we have to coordinate with more people and integrate the works of many to actually deliver our product. And so what happens is that when coordination costs are high, we spend all of our time and energy coordinating with no ability to actually execute the value-creating activities. information has to travel too far, we lose information, it travels too slowly, and often you see organizations unable to move and do anything at all, right? And so I think what DevOps is all about is how do you enable teams to do what they need to do with few external dependencies, and what dependencies you have come through automated platforms. So cloud, getting environments, doing tests, doing information security. And I think all of that, we spent 20, 30 years focused on that because in this quest to drive down coordination cost. And so, I think it is a two-sided coin, right? These miracles allow developers to be so much more productive than they were before. However, it means that we have to integrate the work of even more functional specialties than before. In the 1950s, arguably you could say one developer did it all, right? They did. Whereas now it takes scores of specialties, and we saw that in the CNCF diagram that Mike showed. So anyway, incredible upside, right? The technical practice and performances could not be done without all of these modern affordances and technical miracles that are being available to us today. The downside is more functional specialties we have to work with, and if we're not careful, we can just spend all our time coordinating and not in the value-creating activities that customers actually care about.
Okay. We only have a few minutes left, so what I was going to do is I don't have any questions in the question box unless I'm not reading it properly. Scott, there is no question, right? I have a bunch of other questions, but we're going to be running out of time. So what I will do, we'll bring the panel back together. Marat, Mike. I'm not sure if Shlomo is here. I don't see him right now on the deck. Scott, do you see Shlomo?
I don't believe he could make it. He hasn't checked in. So.
Okay, he's with his kids at Orlando. I'm sure the 3 young kids are keeping him very busy right now. Let me ask you guys a question just individually before we kick maybe other conversation from the audience. Mike, you've been at Red Hat for 7 years. What transformation have you seen at Red Hat around product consumption in the cloud?
Wow, yeah, we've made a tremendous amount of investments that I alluded to in my presentation, but trying to allow our customers to consume our technologies the way they want to. So we've made a lot of investments to I guess, alter the business so that clients can consume our tech through the marketplaces of the hyperscalers most recently. And so in pay-as-you-go, so allow them to experiment and try things out without having a huge barrier to entry. So within Red Hat, it's been a long journey, 7 years of going from you have to buy a subscription to our OpenShift or RHEL or Ansible to a point now where you can literally log into a hyperscaler marketplace and turn on the technology and use it and only pay, a few bucks like you'd pay for something at the bar. So it's been a massive transformation in our company, and we're in the middle of our own digital transformation as a result of that, because we've had to change a lot of internal systems and a lot of training of my staff so that we can best help our customers consume the way they want to consume technology, whatever's best for their business.
Thanks, Mike. Marat, I have a little question for you. You've been working for years on Red Hat technology. What do you like so much about working on Red Hat solution for clients?
Thanks, Luke. Very interesting question. I think what I like most from Red Hat products that they are open source, because that helps always to deliver the best product, and it helps us as a community to contribute to the product and suggest some new features. And if there are some problems, we always can go back to the code, check the code, and try to figure out what is exactly the problem, and we can even fix it if it is something simple, or if it is not something simple, we can just provide that bug report so that developers at Red Hat can fix that bugs for us. So that's what I like most, basically, being all of the products as open source.
Cool. All right, Gene, give you a chance for a little breather after your presentation, so that's why I didn't ask you the question first. It's remarkable that for the last 20 plus years, you've been an advocate for DevOps and DevOps best practice. And what have you seen the biggest improvement of changes over time?
Yeah, in fact, I would say I've only been aware of DevOps for maybe 12 years of that 23 years. I was so ready for for that aha moment, when I did learn about it. I think the biggest change, one, is just the difference in performance, right? The notion that, I spent most of my career in a time when we were shipping, golden CDs, and we would do it, every 9 months or once every year and a half. And the notion of doing, tens of deployments a day, or in the case of Amazon, 136,000 deployments a day, right? Unthinkable, right? I just think, if as leaders, we're not thinking about, unleashing that type of capability in our organization. That is, that is a grave disservice to our organizations. The second one is that I think for technology leaders, we have to be a lot more technical. I think there was an era where, and I think there are still leaders who are technical leaders who are just very comfortable living in budgets and spreadsheets, and very distant from where the work is being done. And I think those are the ones who typically are not participating in these amazing transformations happening within organizations. They're the ones who understand how daily work is performed. So I love this. The socio-technical maestro, high energy, high standards. They're great in the large, but also great in the small, right? Meaning that they can ask good questions. They know when things are being misrepresented, and they love walking the floor. They love technology, right? And so it doesn't have to be great at everything, but just they love the nature of technology work, because last I heard, this is a technology field. So, I think those are the two, I would say, big changes that come to mind.
Cool. One more question for you, Gene, and then we're done. The Great Resignation, or perhaps the Great Reshuffle, continues on. And when you talk to DevOps practitioners across the industry, what are they looking for when they move to a different place?
Right. Oh my goodness. There was a time like about 10 years ago where there was a bank, opened up a Silicon Valley office, right, and committed to building a world-class technology organization, and they found that they could attract amazing talent, but they quit within a month. And when this person, friend of mine, he started asking why. And it turns out that they were spending the first month in compliance training, right? They often didn't have a laptop. They weren't able to build, let alone test or deploy, or actually get access to source code repos. And I think really, what the opposite looks like is that they are close to the customer. They get reward and a sense of value, creating value for them. They get to be productive. They can work independently as opposed to being coupled to everyone else in the enterprise. And we see this in employee net promoter scores. To what degree would we recommend our organizations as a great place to work to our colleagues and friends, right? And when you're in that first scenario, right, not only will they not recommend their organization to friends, but they'll check out and leave, right? So yeah, I think those are characteristics of great organizations we need to create, for our employees, for our stakeholders, for our customers.
I think you're right. I've seen at Arctiq, our solution architect, our engineers be close to the customer. They love their impact they have on clients and working on multiple technology, multiple projects. I think that's what keep the DevOps people excited and happy and learning new technology all the time. I have one question here in the Q&A. Maybe we'll finish with that one. What advice you could say help with people who are afraid of DevOps or still want to help their ops?
Mike, Marat.
Advice people that are afraid of DevOps.
Yeah, I'll just maybe while they're thinking, I would say, especially for information security, for test operations, there may be reasons why they're afraid of DevOps, but I think the goal is to show them the water is great. The quality of life is better. We don't have to be woken up in the middle of the night. We have developers, operating their own code. We become coaches and consultants. We can teach them how to run their code better. There's never been a better time to be in the game. And to speak candidly, right? My friend said, especially in operations, we're in this fork in the road. Down one path, the only job we can find is working at the Genius Bar at the Apple Store, or down the other path, right? We have the hottest skills in the marketplace, and we're needed everywhere. Right now, salary doubles or more. So, I would say, to those afraid, whatever we can take to show them that it's never been a more fun and more productive time to be in the game.
Gene, thanks so much. Mike, Marat, Shlomo, thanks for your contribution today. It was amazing. And love to reconnect with all of you at one point in time. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you all, and good to hopefully we'll see each other in person soon.
Yes, you bet.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.